If you're an old man coffee poker player, like me, the small blind can feel like a bargain. You already have chips in the pot. Calling only costs a little more, and your hand is suited. So why not take a cheap flop? I'll tell you why. Because the small blind's not a bargain. It's a trap with a discount sticker on it. You're forced to invest chips before seeing your cards. The big blind is still waiting behind you. And after the flop, you'll act first for the rest of the hand. That means every marginal hand becomes harder to play. Every mistake becomes more expensive. And every time you say, it was only a few more chips, the small blind comes back around and reaches into your stack again. So today we're going to simplify small blind strategy. When to raise, when to fold, when calling is acceptable, how to respond to limpers and raises, and how to stop using the small blind as an excuse to play hands you should have thrown away. This is how to play from the small blind. Roll intro. Hi everyone, I'm Old Man Chris, and this is GTO for OMC. I'm bringing you along on my journey to learn modern poker and game theory optimal concepts and simplify them for beginners, recreational players, and old man coffee players like me. Let's incorporate these concepts into our game so we can crush cash games and run deep in tournaments. Today we're talking about one of the most difficult positions at the poker table, the small blind. The small blind is difficult for three reasons. First, we've already invested money before seeing our cards. Second, the big blind gets to act behind us. And third, when we see a flop, we're always out of position. That last point is the most important because position is power. And from the small blind, we don't have it. So generally speaking, our strategy should be more aggressive and more selective. The simple idea is this: raise stronger hands, fold more marginal hands, call less often. Now before we dig into the episode, I wanted to share with you that 86% of my viewers are not subscribed to the channel. It would mean the world to me if you took the time to click the subscribe button. And my good friends at GTO Wizard are offering you an incentive to do so. In addition to the 10% discount on a GTO Wizard subscription that they offer to all of my viewers, just click on the link in the description, they're offering one lucky GTO for OMC subscriber a free 1-month subscription to either their cash or tournament elite offering. That's a $169 value. All you have to do to be eligible is be a subscriber and leave a comment in this video. I'll pick a winner from the subscriber list in 2 weeks. Finally, be sure to stick around to the end of the video for the 7 most common small blind leaks. Now let's talk about why the small blind typically loses money. Every position at the table can be profitable under the right conditions, but the blinds are different. The blinds begin every hand by putting money into the pot. That means our goal from the small blind is not necessarily to show a profit overall. Our goal is to lose less than we would by folding every hand. But this creates a dangerous mindset. Players think, I already have money in there, but that money is gone. It no longer belongs to you. Your decision should be based on whether putting in additional chips is profitable, not on whether you already posted the small blind. Do not throw good chips after bad chips because you feel committed to the dollar already in the pot. Let's start with the simplest situation. Everyone folds to you in the small blind, only the big blind remains. This is called blind versus blind. Because there is only one player left, you can raise a much wider range than you would from early position. The big blind has a random hand, they will often fold, and even when they call, you started the hand with an aggressive action. But remember, you will be out of position after the flop. So we want to raise hands that can make good pairs, strong draws, or apply pressure effectively. Looking at GTO Wizard in an 8-handed cash game with 300 big blind effective stacks, we can see that we want to play about 58% of the time and across a wide range of hands. But a couple of things to notice with this range chart, and this goes back to concepts we spoke about in earlier episodes. We don't always want to raise, or always call, or always fold a particular hand. In the example where everyone folds to the small blind, we're going to raise about 27% of the time and just call about 31% of the time. Notice too that there are only a few hands where GTO says to always raise or always call. That's what we mean when we say that following GTO makes you less predictable. And remember, less predictable means less exploitable. Now this doesn't mean that you need to memorize that you raise Jack 6 suited 47.4% of the time and call 52.5% of the time. There's not a pro out there who knows the exact frequencies of the small blind. So I would argue that, for us OMCs, it's important to learn when to fold. Then if we know we're going to call or raise, then we can determine how to proceed. Against a tight big blind who folds too much, raise more often. Against a sticky big blind who defends almost everything, tighten up slightly and raise for more value. The mistake is completing automatically just because it's cheap. That makes you predictable and exploitable. Now for beginners, a simple framework is this: raise or fold most of your small blind hands when action folds to you. Calling can be merged into your strategy as you gain experience, but raising or folding keeps the decision simpler. When raising from the small blind, we generally want to use a slightly larger size than we might use from the button. Why? Because we're out of position. We would prefer to win the pot immediately, and we want to charge the big blind for having position on us. If your normal late position open is 2.5 big blinds, your small blind raise might be around 3 or 4 big blinds. In live cash games, especially against players who call too much, you may even want to go larger. For example, in a 1-3 game, if action folds to you, raising to $12 or $15 may be more effective than raising to 8 and inviting an automatic call. The exact size depends on the game, but the principle is simple. Out of position, charge more. Now let's say one or more players limp before the action reaches you. This is where OMCs often make the cheap call mistake. We look down at something like King of Clubs, 8 of Clubs, 2 players limp and we think, I'm already halfway in, let's see a flop. But what happens? The big blind checks, we go 4 ways to the flop, and now we're first to act with a marginal hand against 3 players. That's not a bargain. That's a difficult situation we purchased voluntarily. If the flop comes Jack of Clubs, 8 of Spades, 4 of Diamonds, we're going to feel better about our middle pair heads up, but not so much if there are 4 of us in the pot. Our equity is crushed 4 ways. When facing limpers from the small blind, use a more value-heavy strategy. Raise strong hands and raise larger because of the extra players. Fold weak hands that will make dominated pairs. Calling can be reasonable with some hands that play well multi-way, such as small pocket pairs or suited connectors, especially when stacks are deep. But be careful. Suited does not automatically mean profitable, and completing from the small blind should not become a reflex. If you raise over limpers, make it meaningful. In a 1-3 game with 2 limpers, a raise to $18 or $20 may be more appropriate depending on the table. If they're going to call with weak hands, charge them. Now let's talk about when things get more difficult. Someone raises before the action reaches you. From the small blind, calling should usually be less attractive than calling from the big blind. Why? The big blind still gets to act. They may call and create a multi-way pot. They may squeeze with a re-raise. And if you do see a flop, you're out of position. This is why modern small blind strategy often leans heavily toward 3-bet or fold. Against late position opens, we can 3-bet wider because their opening range is wider. Against an early position raise, we should be tighter because their range should be stronger. Some suited aces can work as 3-bet bluffs because they block strong ace combinations and still have potential when called. But for beginners, keep the strategy value heavy. Don't run fancy small blind 3-bet bluffs against someone who never folds. Let's talk about the small blind mistakes. Here are the hands that often get players into trouble. Weak offsuit aces, weak offsuit kings, hands like King-Jack offsuit against strong opens, Queen-10 offsuit, small suited hands that look attractive but make weak pairs. These hands suffer from domination. You call with Ace of Clubs, 8 of Diamonds, the flop comes Ace High. That sounds good. But when the original raiser has Ace King, Ace Queen, Ace Jack, you've made the exact kind of hand that can lose a large pot. This is why folding pre-flop can save us from difficult post-flop decisions. A fold doesn't feel exciting, but neither does paying off 3 streets with the second best ace. When we see the flop from the small blind, we need to respect our positional disadvantage. Out of position, we should generally check more often, build smaller pots with medium strength hands, value bet strong hands, bluff selectively, and avoid trying to win every pot. Let's say you raise from the small blind with Ace of Spades, Queen of Spades, the big blind calls, and the flop is Queen of Diamonds, 7 of Clubs, 2 of Hearts. This is a good board for you. You have top pair, top kicker. You can bet for value. Now imagine you raise with the same hand and the flop comes 9 of Spades, 8 of Spades, 7 of Diamonds. You have overcards and a flush draw, but this board connects strongly with the big blind's defending range. You should not automatically bet just because you raised pre-flop. Board texture still matters, and being out of position makes careless betting even more expensive. Let's talk a little more about blind versus blind poker because it can become personal. Don't let it. The big blind may defend wide, they may float flops, they may attack your checks. That doesn't mean they're disrespecting you. It means ranges are wide and position matters. Against an aggressive big blind, raise a solid range, check some strong hands after the flop, allow them to bluff, don't turn every hand into an ego battle. Now against a passive big blind, steal more often, continuation bet good boards, value bet relentlessly when you connect, different opponent, different adjustment. The small blind is already difficult. Don't make it harder by defending your honor. Defend your chips. Now let's talk about the 7 most common small blind leaks. Leak number 1, completing because it's cheap. Cheap doesn't mean profitable. Leak number 2, calling raises too wide. You're out of position and the big blind can still act. Leak number 3, playing dominated offsuit hands. Weak aces and kings create expensive second best pairs. Leak number 4, raising too small. If the big blind's calling everything, charge more. Leak number 5, overplaying one pair after the flop. Out of position pots can grow quickly. Leak number 6, taking blind versus blind aggression personally. This is poker, not a property line dispute. And leak number 7, forgetting stack depth. When stacks are deep, positional disadvantage becomes even more important. So let's make small blind strategy simple and develop one of our OMC cheat sheets. When everyone folds to you, raise or fold most hands. Against a tight big blind, steal wider. Against a sticky big blind, raise stronger hands and size up. Facing limpers, raise strong hands for value. Don't complete automatically. Facing an early position raise, continue with a tight range. Facing a late position raise, 3-bet somewhat wider, but stay disciplined. Avoid weak offsuit aces and kings. Post-flop, check more often, control the pot with medium strength hands, and value bet strong hands. And remember, the small blind is not a discount. It's literally the worst seat in the house with half the cover charge already paid. Playing from the small blind doesn't have to be complicated, but it does require discipline. Stop treating the small blind as an excuse to see cheap flops. Raise stronger hands, fold more marginal hands, call less frequently, charge the big blind when you open, and respect the fact that you'll usually be out of position. The goal is not to win every small blind pot. The goal is to stop giving away extra chips from the hardest position at the table. If this video helped, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. What's your biggest small blind leak? Completing too often? Calling raises too wide? Or getting into blind versus blind ego battles? I'm Old Man Chris. This is GTO for OMC. And remember, the small blind may be half a blind, but it can create a full-size problem. I'll see you in the next one.